All right, so with this, ladies and gentlemen, as we mentioned, there is a very special keynote now on behalf of the government. And before we lead on to this keynote, I'm going to now invite on stage Mr. Baldeep Singh Pahwa, who is the country head for Constellar Exhibitions, to join us and set the tone for this keynote. Please, welcome, sir. Over to you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here. We know over the last 2 days, it has been a packed room with over 120 exhibitors and over 5,000 people attending this event. One such chapter is being written here today. Since we opened yesterday, we've already witnessed over 5,000 business visitors, 500 plus delegates across 30 plus discussions on topics ranging from government policies to metaverse to banking, lending, insurtech, blockchain, and so on. And for all it's worth, it is because of you that we have been able to achieve this. There is no challenge that cannot be defeated if we all get together and face it as one unit. We've all seen the ups and downs over the last few years, and yet here we are together on one platform, sharing our experiences and stories along the way. What more can one ask for? And lest we forget about the contribution and support from various government ministries, offices, where it is our associate partner Niti Aayog, our supporting partners Ministry of Electronics and IT, MSME, Information and Broadcasting Ministries, and others. Keeping that in mind and respecting the time of our chief guest, I would like to now welcome on stage the one and only, a personality who's probably a lot more savvy with the tech than all of us present here today right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage a truly techie from heart and Honorable Minister Shri Rajeev Chandrasekhar ji, the Minister of State for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and Electronics and Information Technology of India. Sir, yes.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Baldeep Singh, Country Manager, Constellar India. Thank you for having me over on this day 2 of the FinTech Festival. I gather it's been a successful 2 days, and I will obviously not want to keep you on the end of day 2 with a long-winded speech from a minister in the government. So, but having been invited, let me just share a few views with you and thoughts with you that I hope would be useful to the FinTech ecosystem in general and those who are participating or participants in this in particular. August 15th, 2021, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, speaking from the Red Fort, celebrating 75 years of our independence, spoke to the coming decade. He spoke about the decade that is in front of us, and he described that as India's decade. And that in that phrase, there is a lot to be understood from that phrase. Of course, it points to the large number of opportunities that are there for entrepreneurs and startups in the coming years in the area of tech, in the area of digital. But it speaks to a larger and a more profound change that is underway in India. And in a lot of ways, that change, you are starring in that change, you are, in a sense, catalyst of that change. And that change is as follows. For the best part of the 75 years of India's independence, or India's independent history, the economy of India was in large part driven by a few groups, few companies, few families that in a sense corralled the opportunities, they corralled the capital. And over the last 75 years, you've seen we have sort of plodded along on the growth trajectory. We've met our milestones. And for a long time, India was seen as this plodding democracy that kind of grew and found its way. We were consumers of technology, not producers of technology. We were seen as a democracy that was at best very dysfunctional because of the age-old narrative that out of every 100 rupees that was minted in Delhi, 15 rupees reached the beneficiary and 85 rupees mysteriously disappeared into the pockets of intermediaries and middlemen. All of that was essentially what described India for the best part of the last 75 years, or at least the time before 2014. Post 2014, the PM, Narendra Modi ji, rolled out the Digital India vision. And in a lot of ways, what we see today at this festival, what you see in your own personal life and trajectories and business trajectories, is a consequence of that Digital India vision. So I would like to, without taking way too much time of this Thursday evening, lay out for you what those goals and outcomes that he sought in 2015 were, and then, in a sense, review where we are in 2022. When he talked about Digital India in 2015, he said there are three broad objectives. One was that technology must transform governance and democracy. It must transform the lives of Indians. Two, he said technology must create more opportunities for the young of India and expand the digital economy as part of the overall economy. And the third is that India, from being decades of consumer of technologies, must lead the charge in terms of shaping and defining the future of technology. If you look at these three building blocks, principles, foundational principles of Digital India, you will find that technology has dramatically been transforming governance and the relationship between government and citizen over the last 7 years. The same narrative that 100 rupees that left Delhi, 15 rupees would reach the beneficiary and 85 rupees would mysteriously evaporate, has now changed to 100 rupees leaving Delhi, hitting the account, a Jandan account of a beneficiary in remote India, all 100 rupees of it, almost instantaneous, without any leakage or corruption. And that, in my opinion, is the defining attribute of why there is an increase in trust between the citizen and government today. And that piece of financial trust between government and the citizen that started as an attempt to rebuild the credibility of government, transform the lives of citizens, bring back trust in the Indian democracy, started with that and is today in 2022 given rise to this powerful ecosystem, which is one of the world's fastest growing, most innovating financial FinTech ecosystem. A small idea with a very different set of outcomes aimed at improving the lot of citizens, improving trust in government, brings about large-scale deployment of technology in government and creates a highly successful, highly valuable FinTech ecosystem, which is worth billions and billions of dollars today, as most of you here today who have stalls here and who are participating will acknowledge. So in a lot of ways, the FinTech ecosystem is a case in point, is a stark demonstrator of the power of using technology in government and digital government and the impact it has as long as that technology is open source, easily accessible, not firewalled, the impact it has on creating the innovation ecosystem. As the minister in the Ministry of Technology and with the dual charge of skilling, one of the great advantages or the great pleasures I have is that my ministry intersects on the main stakeholder of both these ministries, that is the young Indian. And I have spent, and I was explaining to somebody just now, just before I walked in, that I have spent 35 years in tech. And I truly believe that we are living in the most exciting and the most fascinating time ever in technology, in digital, and in all things entrepreneur. And I think what we are seeing today in India, and I'll give you two case in points, two examples. A year and a half ago, there was no such thing as a drone industry in India, and the Prime Minister laid out a drone policy. And recently there was a drone startup conference very similar to this. And I could count over 600 very viable, very relevant, very competitive, very state-of-the-art startups in the drone ecosystem that went from platforms to applications to AI to the actual hardware in terms of motors. And that is the kind of energy and enthusiasm and passion and hard work and drive today that the ecosystem of startups is creating. Just 3 Fridays ago, I was at the inaugural launch of the space startup ecosystem. Again, there was no such thing 3 months ago. 3 months ago, the Honorable Prime Minister opened up the space sector. And 3 Fridays ago, I inaugurated a program very similar to this, where there were 128 startups. So I won't take very much more of your time. I think we are on the cusp of something very big. And when the Prime Minister refers to the coming decade as India's decade, I think he has absolute foresight and vision that this coming decade is going to be built on the energy, on the hard work, determination, and most importantly, the innovation and ideas of young Indians all around the country. Again, thank you to the organizers for inviting me here. It was a last-minute drop-in visit. I know this is the worst thing on the calendar of events, to be speaking at the last day or the last speaker when people are all tired and exhausted and have had an overload of gyan and information, which Delhi is very famous for. I try and avoid giving gyan, but I just want to do my bit as an evangelizer and an advocate of this idea that we are at the cusp of something big. The next 10 years are 10 years that are going to make us believe that today we ain't seen nothing yet, and the best is yet to come. So thank you again. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll request Mr. Baldeep and Mr. James Boy, Vice President, Constellar, to kindly step up on the stage to felicitate the Honorable Minister, sir, for his presence. Thank you, sir. Let's put up a round of applause, please. Would you, ladies and gentlemen?